Selfies, social networking, and romantic relationships. The community advantage. Hi, everybody. I'm John Hines, and I'd like to start this presentation by talking about selfies. I think quite a lot of us have taken selfies already, so we know what they are. But I went ahead and checked in Wikipedia and I think one other online dictionary source, and basically a selfie is a photograph that is taken by the self. And usually it is handheld, although I have taken some selfies where, let's say I had a timer and my camera was just going to go off by itself, maybe on a tripod or some other stable, way to keep it going there. So, but also you can have interval photos where you have a camera set to take a photo, let's say once every 30 seconds over a longer time, and you can be doing something. Anyway, we've got fresh selfies from work. Sunblock lotion selfies. Topless male selfies. Bicycle riding selfies. Running in place and post-workout selfies. Selfies taken on the school parking lot. Nice, relaxed selfies. And finally, selfies taken here and there. Anyway, though, I think an interesting point about selfies is they really make the use of social networking sites or social media very much more interesting. For example, in this day and age, how interested would you be in intently following somebody who had only writing and never any photographs of him or herself, or even never any photographs at all? It was just writing all the time. Well, that writing would have to be extremely interesting in order to keep you interested in following intently. So basically, we can gain an understanding that photos are really very, very important in, like say with Instagram. All right, so Wikipedia also brought up the idea of dangerous selfies where people try to get themselves into incredible views, but they can have tragedies. Look at this number, 259. That's taken from this news story right here, an NBC, a screenshot I took, NBC Nightly News from May 23 last year, and you can see what it's about here. So people really think that social media is so important, social networking. They just got to have incredible photos. I mean, it's not just the smartphones that get them to do this. It's not the technology, it's the sharing. Okay, it's the community. All right, what you're seeing here now is a bibliography entry for a chapter from an anthology about computer-mediated communication. And this chapter talks about how people have been finding that using social media or social networking sites is better for initiating and establishing romance than dating sites. So, last year I had a classmate who said he met his girlfriend online, and we were having a class discussion, and I said, I had written a paper about online dating services, and he said, well, no, actually, I met her through social networking, social media. So that kind of threw me by surprise. But, like I said, this chapter with that bibliography I just pointed out to you, that says also that people tend to initiate and maintain their romantic relationships better with social media, with social networking sites, or through social networking than they do with online dating sites or through, online dating. And I'm going to explain why I think this is so using a theory called relational dialectics. All right, you're looking at another bibliography, and this is from M. Griffin's book about communication theory, and one of the theories he discusses is relational dialectics, and he has said some interesting things about the theory. He and some other people have basically implied that these tensions that you can see here in this screenshot are actually a healthy part of good relationships, that no relationship is without tensions or contradictions and struggles and so on. So basically in the same pages, he continues on to imply that we have a relationship not just between the partners in a couple, but also between that couple and external society, which I think is very, very important, and I will explain more now. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about a few ideas here and pulling them together and then also progressing on to try to bring in some new ideas and make some conclusions. So the first thing is that we were saying that selfies are really super important for social media, And of course also writing is too, and nowadays people are also adding video clips and so on. The next thing I need to bring up is that we need to make a distinction between the initiation and the maintenance of romantic relationships. So dating services, I think, are more useful for initiating romantic relationships maybe than they are for maintaining them, but social media, social networking sites, or social networking is perhaps useful for both of these. In any case, however, I want to point out that, okay, do you remember how I said relational dialectics emphasizes the importance of the relationship between the couple and external society, right? Well, social media, social networking sites are more ideally suited to have the couple and also each individual in the couple present to the external public, and I will explain why. I would say, generally speaking, that dating services are intended to be used for people to present themselves to potential future romantic partners, right? Wouldn't you agree? And not necessarily to the whole general public. Also, when you are using a dating service, usually when you begin communicating with a potential future romantic partner, that communication is not public. It is not seen by other users of the dating service. It is a private line of communication you have with that partner or that potential partner, right? It's not going out to everybody. On the other hand, with social media, when people communicate on social media, it's presented to the whole public unless they have like a private social media account or they select, who can view their messages and who cannot. But what I'm saying is often you've got people not just presenting directly and privately to one another as individuals, you've got people communicating to the public. It's mass communication. So you can have simultaneously one-to-one, but it's also going to everybody. And there you have a social community. Again, comparing this with dating services, you don't really have much mass communication going on except maybe for what the people have in their dating profiles that everybody can see. But usually those items of information are not intended for everybody, not for the whole public. They're only intended for the opposite sex or the intended target. You see what I'm saying? So in that case, like half of the public is excluded. Like if I put something in my dating profile about myself, yes, it's public to the viewers who are of the opposite sex, but it's not viewable to everybody. I mean, unless they're looking, but I wouldn't want them to be. So let's say if I post something publicly, it might only be intended for about half of the public if I were using a dating site, right, online. But if I'm using social media or a social networking site, it's intended for everybody. Therefore, one big conclusion here is that dating services are only used for relationships between partners in a couple, right? Whereas social media or social networking sites are used for the relationship between the couple and external society, which is what relational dialectics pointed out is so important. That relationship, that tension is part of the health of a good relationship. But what I want to say is that we can kind of examine human society by, let's say, looking at primitive tribes. Let's say we had a primitive tribe and we would see people having romantic relationships, right? So maybe some of the time two people would go off as a couple and sort of go away from society for a while, but they would always come back because group survival is very, very important. The tribe works together as a whole for survival. The people don't just go off, just two people on their own and go survive long-term all on their own. They don't. They come back, they work together as a community for a bigger community survival. So again, the people, they don't just go off, like couples don't just go off and become separated from the tribe and stay separated from the tribe long-term. No, that is not the case. The people, the couples, they come back, they work together with the tribe. So this is a group, a big group society thing going on. And you see that with social media, where it is a group thing. Everybody, lots of people can see your communication. And this is not the case with dating services. Dating services are intended for like one-on-one between the partners in a potential romantic relationship, whereas the social networking, social media, that can be used for like this group, this public, this big tribe, right? See what I'm saying? So again, this group survival is better reflected in the use of social media in the use of social networking sites than it is in the use of online dating sites. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the video. If you want to learn more about relational dialectics, M. Griffin recommends you read this work. Also, here is another reading you might want to look into to learn more about social networking sites.